All right, so that's Reverend John Hagee from the Cornerstone Church, who counts himself as one of Israel's best friends in the world, and his good friend Joseph Lieberman describing him as a man of God. Would you agree, Jim, that John Hagee and his brand of dispensationalist Christianity provides a good alliance for American Jews or Israeli Jews?
Well, I mean, speaking as an American Jew, I find his ideas utterly repulsive. But there's been a long-standing debate dating back to the late 70s about how American Jews, particularly those who were most concerned about Israel's security or who supported the Israel settlement project, how they should relate to the Christian right, and particularly to Christian Zionists like Jerry Falwell or Pastor Hagee, who actually began, I think, his Israel-oriented ministry in 1982. And I would say those within the community associated with Commentary Magazine, people like Irving Kristol and so on, basically said, yeah, they are a strategic ally of Israel's, and therefore we should forge a strategic alliance with people like that, as objectionable as we may find the theology that they espouse. And there were other more liberal Jews who felt that was not a good idea at all, and that many believed that at the heart of Hagee's and Falwell's beliefs were, yes, a philo-Semitism insofar as it related to Israel, but an anti-Semitism insofar as it related to Jews at large. I don't know whether Pastor Hagee is anti-Semitic in the way, say, that Jerry Falwell disclosed from time to time, or Pat Robertson has shown from time to time. Rabbis who've worked with him in San Antonio insist that they don't think he actually is. Sentiments like the ones that you just aired, I don't know how they can be interpreted in any other way myself. So I think it's a terrible alliance.
Well, ultimately, the plan is, Jim, I believe the plan ultimately is to, from Hagee's point of view, to use Israel, I guess to, create a greater Israel all the way to the Tigris or something. And at that point, that will force, the Russians and the Arabs and everybody to invade, and then Jesus will come back and kill everybody, including the Jews. That's the plan, right?
Well, I think under dispensationalist theology, some 30 or 40,000 Jews who accept Jesus as their Lord would be saved in a situation like that. I think it's laid out in more detail in the LaHaye and Jenkins Left Behind series.
Mm-hmm. A couple of 10,000s out of millions, huh?
I guess that's the idea. But the point is that it's a very instrumentalist vision of the use of Jews or Judaism in the world, designed primarily to bring about the return of the Messiah, the end of the world, through the apocalypse and so on and so forth. But Irving Kristol, I can quote him, I think, verbatim in a letter he wrote about this published in Commentary Magazine back in 1982, the same time that Hagee was getting going on his ministry, which was, it's their theology, but it's our Israel. Mm. That was his opinion. I don't think that is a majority view, even by people who are strong Zionists. I think a lot of people who are outside of the Likud or settler sphere feel very uncomfortable about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a lot of Americans who feel really uncomfortable, or I don't know how many, but some Americans I know feel pretty uncomfortable about Israel's role, or the American Israel lobby's role in determining American foreign policy. And when we talk about a possible war with Iran, from here it seems, Jim, and I have an open mind and I'm willing to learn, but I can't really find any other interest in America other than Dick Cheney's warped mind that wants a war with Iran. That last fall, the CIA and 15 other intelligence agencies said that they're not pursuing nuclear weapons, and yet all week long, all the politicians are bowing and scraping at AIPAC, saying we will not let them continue to pursue nuclear weapons. All options are on the table, et cetera, et cetera. Is it just the Israel lobby pushing for war with Iran? Is there anybody else in America that's, a member of this war party?
I think the so-called Israel lobby, and again, I think it's important not to define it too broadly. I mean, when you consider organizations like Americans for Peace Now or Israel Policy Forum part of the Israel lobby, yes, they are Zionist in that they believe there should be an Israel that exists, that is a Jewish state, but they don't necessarily believe it should impinge on the territory of others or should assert its sovereignty over Palestinians. They think that it should be a fairly modestly sized Israel and not necessarily control all of the West Bank and so on.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't mean to brush with too broad a stroke.
Certainly do not favor war with Iran, and I would even go so far as to say that AIPAC itself does not favor war with Iran. I think some leaders in AIPAC would favor an attack on Iran if all else fails before Iran can achieve a nuclear weapon or can obtain a nuclear weapon. I think it's probably safe to say that. But I think most members of AIPAC hope that somehow there will be a solution that's short of that. But I would also say that those who feel that sabers need to be rattled as loudly as possible definitely consist of right-wing sectors of the so-called Israel lobby, and including, judging from the applause lines, including some of the leadership of AIPAC.
When I talked to Andrew Coburn, he agreed that the neoconservative, or that the word neoconservative is really a biographical definition like that. But he said the neoconservatives are where the Israel lobby meets the military-industrial complex lobby. That's who the neocons really are. They're the amalgam of Northrop Grumman, Lockheed, and the Likud party. Does that sound about right?
I think it's true to state that if you're looking for an economic base of the neoconservative movement, you would find it in military contractors. Yeah, I think that is correct. Of course, the same contractors have no hesitation about selling very, very large and sophisticated weapons to Arab states around Israel, and against which AIPAC and the, quote, Israel lobby will lobby hard in Congress.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's where they come up against the Saudi lobby, right?
For example.
Yeah. All right. Now, I'm sorry. The one thing I wanted to ask, this doctrine that Iran must not be able to enrich any nuclear fuel whatsoever, that comes from Israel, right? That's where that policy comes from, that for them to enrich anything, even within the guidelines of the Non-Proliferation Treaty and the IAEA Safeguards Agreement, is tantamount to their being able to make a nuclear bomb. That is what is not acceptable.
Yeah, I think that's generally the case. There is a non-proliferation lobby that exists independently of, let's call it the Israel lobby. And that lobby is not marginal in Washington. And they feel pretty strongly about the same kinds of things. They want very, very rigorous international safeguards on any enrichment that's going on, and they much prefer that enrichment take place outside of countries or regions even where there is substantial enmities among people.
So there's a pretty strong alliance then between parts of the Israel lobby and that non-proliferation lobby who come together to support the American policy along those same lines.
Yeah, I would say, in all fairness, Iran's nuclear program dates back to the mid-'80s and the Iraq War. And some of it was clearly carried out in secret, which is why the IAEA has taken such an interest in Iran's program, apart from pressure exerted by the United States or its allies. Because, there is a fear that if one country in the region beyond Israel, which is not a signatory of the Non-Proliferation Act, goes beyond that, outside that act, or develops the capacity to go outside that act and actually develop nuclear weapons, you will have a chain reaction